Hello, I'm American Johnson. Welcome back to Non-Compete. Today's episode is a very special interview with a guest who goes by Alana. Alana actually coined the term incel back in the mid to late 90s, and if you've never heard the term incel before, it's short for involuntary celibate or involuntary celibacy. And these days this term has taken on a lot of notoriety, especially because a few men who identify as incels have committed some pretty heinous acts of violence. In fact, the incel community nowadays is a very toxic and dark place online where men come together and they basically convince each other that there's just no hope for ever finding love. They are very pessimistic, very dour. It's a depressing phenomenon, but it wasn't always like that. In fact, when Alana first founded the community that she started back in the 90s, it was a pretty positive and hopeful place. So without further ado, let's go on ahead to Alana's story and let her tell us how she founded the incel movement and how it has evolved and how nowadays she hopes to move beyond incel.
It was 1997 when I started a website called Involuntary Celibacy. And as far as I know, I was the first person to use the term, but I don't really care about that. I'd started dating in my mid-20s. And it had taken me a long time to get there. I was kind of a late bloomer. And when I started dating, I realized that, hey, I'm not the only late bloomer out there. There's other people who have been lonely, who have not really been sure how to approach dating. I identified with all those folks. And so the website I created was a very early website. I was using fairly new tech. It was text only, in fact. And so I was hand coding HTML to create this black and white plain text website. And it was one of the early support groups that were created on the internet. And it was a great place to reach an international audience of people who wanted to talk about a problem they had in common. And it was really exciting. Everybody was respectful to each other. There were a few friendships built. There was even a man and a woman who met through this mailing list and got married. It's amazing. It was a totally different thing than the incel community that we see today. I know that it was in 2015 that I found out that the manosphere and the men's rights movement the incel had become part of that. And I was pretty shocked because when I was organizing it, incel was a thing that could be women or men or actually non-binary people hadn't even identified themselves yet, but it could be anybody. And it was pretty shocking to see that it had become one gender and a hateful version of it. So it was a shock. So in fact, this Love Not Anger project that I'm doing now, I'm thinking back to those old days 20 years ago when people were friendly on the internet. My first thought with the Love Not Anger project was to create a new support forum online, but I quickly realized that would need to be moderated and that the moderator would need to be paid because we would need someone with mental health qualifications. So the project is redirected a little bit. At this stage, I'm trying to get research going. Because even if you have some counseling, it's not really clear what kind of support and help is needed. What would be the best advice to someone who is lonely and wishing they were dating but having difficulty with that? And so I don't think the new thing's going to look like the old thing, but the spirit of an open, friendly, and supportive internet is still there. One of the things that happens is people don't know where to go for support, so they randomly reach out to someone who's available and who's open and visible, and that might not be the most appropriate person to reach out to. I keep thinking about how part of the problem is that men are taught not to share their vulnerabilities, so they're going online to talk to strangers where it's safer to be vulnerable, and they're finding a bunch of strangers who are giving them really wrong-headed ideas about women and objectification of women and so on. So maybe we should say not just, do be vulnerable and do share your feelings, but try and share them with people who respect others. I think it could be very easy for a man to forget that women are people. And if you're a guy who's afraid of women because you're shy about dating, maybe you're going to find all male environments to hang out in, online or offline. And then you'll forget that women are people because you are interacting only with men. And the only people who have personalities in your world are men, and everybody else is just some sort of abstract picture. I think that if a man's only interaction with women is in the abstract. He sees pictures online, or he sees porn, or he only sees one or two women in his life, maybe like, your mom or somebody, then you're going to forget that other women are people. The more insular you get, the more you forget about humanity. So the Love Not Anger project that I'm doing is about all genders, all orientations, and any people who have this issue, and for that exact reason. And I want us to start looking more at, what kind of difficulties with dating do queer people have? If you are lesbian or gay or bisexual, dating is more confusing. The rules are not clear. You have fewer people available to you to date. If you're in a homophobic community, it might be dangerous. So we need to be looking at all sorts of different communities, not just at the straight guys. Love, not anger, is fundamentally the point. How can lonely people find respectful love instead of being stuck in anger? I've got a research agenda. I would like to engage some academic researchers from psychology and other social science disciplines to get some evidence about what are the causes of dating difficulties. And if we know the causes, we can come up with better solutions. So what I'm hoping is there'll be more spin-off efforts. So if you think about anti-bullying, I think that might be a similar kind of campaign. When I was young, there was no effort in schools about bullying. It was just a thing the principal dealt with. And later on, there was tremendous awareness and efforts taken. There are lots and lots of organizations that are trying to do something about bullying. It might be just on the awareness level, but they're trying to do something. So a successful movement that goes society-wide generally has a lot of spin-offs. So this Love Not Anger project is not going to solve all the world's problems. It's not going to do everything. It's basically to prompt many other people to do something. And so I'm gradually talking to charities, I'm talking to academic researchers, and I'll be talking more to the public to get movement happening. And if someone else is inspired to do something about lonely people who have dating difficulties, then absolutely, let's all go and do something. The tagline, the mission, is to research how lonely people might find respectful love and not be stuck in anger. It's not just about sex, it's not about appearances, it's about wanting human connection with someone who feels good with you. And that, that's what a love relationship is about. And it's about offering support to people who don't yet have experience of that kind of love. They might have struggled for a long time or given up struggling. And, this is not a happy situation to be in, but it doesn't have to be an angry situation. It can be a situation where you have a little bit of hope for gradually building some human connections. It might be that people have to start with friendship before they get anywhere near finding love relationships. But just finding that human connection to others and to understand those other people and their feelings, I think is a good first step for anybody who is struggling with this situation. To everybody who is struggling with loneliness, there is some hope. It's going to take a while. And it requires some courage, taking a few risks to go and talk to other humans and get to know people. Because the more people you get to know, the more likely you are to find someone who really likes you and who wants to spend more time with you. And, if people can take a relaxed approach to that, it will help. The other thing I would say is to get help. Do get support, and that means probably getting counseling or therapy from someone who can help you understand why you might have ended up in this situation of being lonely, and speaking to someone who will be honest with you about it and with whom you can be safely vulnerable in a confidential space is really valuable. If someone offers you an instant fix that, it's the microwave of relationships, they're probably trying to scam you. And they're giving you too easy an answer. It's hard. It takes a lot of courage to make a change in your life. So if you go to lovenotanger.org, that's all one word, Love Not Anger, you'll see a page called Collaboration. And if you have something to contribute, skills to offer, you're welcome to send me a message and ask to join the forum. Currently, we're discussing really basic things like what's a good name for a person who has dating difficulties. because the name incel is taken. It's not a good name anymore. Let's look towards the future. Let's not just get angry about a few people who are violent. Let's focus on everybody of all genders who is having difficulty with social skills and dating. And let's have some empathy for each other so we can build respectful relationships.
Thank you so much, Alana, for joining us here on Non-Compete. I've already gone to lovenotAnger.org and signed up to be a contributor. If you have some free time and some skills that you think would be valuable to this very worthy cause, I encourage you to do the same. Now, these were just the highlights from an hour-long interview that I did with Alana. I would love to bring you the rest of the interview. It was hard to cut it down, actually, because there was so much good stuff. If that's something you'd be interested in checking out, let me know in the comments. And if there's enough interest, then I'll release a video or maybe an MP3 or something so that you can check out the rest of the interview. If you like this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing. We talk about all kinds of leftist and feminist topics here on Non-Compete. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Well, thanks so much. I had loads of fun.
So did I.
Good night, Woody.
Night, Ann.